Welcome in, everybody, to the Raiders 2025 free agency preview show. I'm JT, and it's an honor to finally say the Hall of Famer. Eric Allen is with me, and EA, I love you, man. I'm excited. It's our first project together, our first broadcast. Since you got the news, went to New Orleans, and just fed off the crowd. How's it feel?
It feels awesome. And right here in this room, I kind of let it out a little bit when me and you were doing a show for, I think, when Coach Carroll was being hired, and let you know. So from that moment till now, it's just been a roller coaster ride. It's been awesome and amazing. The community around the Hall of Fame has been just special, and kind of welcomed our family in, and all the great texts and phone calls. I'm sorry I haven't been able to reach out to everybody yet, but I'm going to get to it. But it's great to be here with you again and doing some football.
Always a privilege and an honor. Let's get into the quarterbacks here as we take a look at free agency, but who's under contract here. And this gets interesting because everyone's under contract, restricted for Desmond Ridder. But Aiden O'Connell jumps out, and I just did an event with Aiden a week ago with Rod Woodson, and he's so calm and so at ease, and there's been a lot of turnover around this young man.
Yes.
Played for a lot of different people, coordinators and head coaches, but we know what a great person he is on and off the field, and someone who's got a lot of talent and still a high ceiling.
Yeah, I think Aiden has a spot here in the National Football League. I think he's the kind of guy who can get into a program as long as there's some consistency behind him and in front of him. I think he can be a big-time player. We've seen some bright spots from this young man. We've seen some improvement and some growth from Aiden, and he's going to continue to get better as long as he has a really capable staff around him. I thought the one mistake that was made that really hindered his progress was not naming him the starter going into last year. I thought, if both quarterbacks were even at the time, you go with the guy who had won you some games the previous year. We know how tough he is. We know how competitive he is. Obviously, we have to get better at that position, but I really like Aiden a lot.
I think he's a very important piece going forward for a number of reasons. He's got a rookie contract. He was drafted in the 4th round. I think everybody admits if he came out in the last 2 drafts, he would have been in the 2nd, maybe 3rd round. So the value of him when they drafted him was good. He had some really good teachers, even though they're not here anymore, coaches and offensive coordinators who've been around this league for a while, and he's a nice piece to have on the chessboard.
Right.
Because the Raiders now are playing chess, and they're going forward into free agency, potentially with a quarterback, and they have a high draft pick to get an elite rookie quarterback. But knowing that Aiden's on the board and Aiden's going to be here, hopefully it gives John Spytek, Tom Brady, Chip Kelly, and Pete Carroll the ability to be flexible.
You are right when we're talking about playing chess. And this is an opportunity to kind of know what you know and have those pieces on that board that you know what you can get from those young men. And this is definitely that case, which is, arguably the best and most important position in all of football. We have to have that position secure and taken care of as we go into this 2025 season.
Yeah, I look at the quarterback position and I say, if you're on a roster, that's a big deal. If you're on a roster, there's undrafted quarterbacks. There are quarterbacks who are getting cut, coming to other rosters. Guys under consideration maybe to be a quarterback on another team. Aiden's in a good spot. Aiden's going to be here. Aiden O'Connell is someone that's going to be important in the preparation of an elite rookie quarterback possibly, or someone who's going to sit behind a veteran and be there. If the veteran is elite and a good player, and God forbid he goes down, tweaks something, that Aiden comes in and you just know he's got the organization right where it needs to be. He's a very smart quarterback in this league.
He is. And what you get with Aiden is a certain type of quarterback. You know you're going to be in a drop-back type of situation. So there has to be some things surrounding this quarterback. And we heard Coach Pete talk about being able to have a great support system around your quarterback. And that's incredibly important to know exactly what you have. And then we know what we have in Aiden. We know we have to protect Aiden. He's not going to be the guy who's outside the pocket making plays creatively with his legs. He's not him. So you have to have an offense that's designed to really help him flourish. And I think those are the kind of things we know about Aiden. But if the pocket is clean, he's going to give you good opportunities to make plays down the field.
Yeah, I think Aiden has a bright future in this league. Now we're going to jump over to the other side of the ball and get to defense with the safeties. And this, to me, could get very complicated because 2 of the players that are there as free agents are Epps and Merrick. And they're both good players. And Epps came off the injury last year. He wasn't able to come back and play. And Trayvon Merrick continues to get better and better. What message did the Raiders send, EA, by signing Isaiah Palamal to an extension there? It feels like they have their hedge bet here for a young guy who can start, or if they end up getting better players in free agency, can fit right into where he did last year.
Isaiah has to be excited.
Yeah.
Because when you perform well, you expect a team that you have played for and a head coach you play for to re-sign you. But now, when Pete Carroll comes in, they have a whole evaluation process that has to fit their defensive scheme. And for them to offer this young man, that says a lot about what they expect of him, what he has put in the house as far as his work and his preparation. And he's going to be the kind of guy, I think, who can control the middle of the football field. He's that deep safety. So whenever we're in that one high look, either cover 3 or cover 1, he's going to be the guy patrolling that deep middle of the football field. So right now, he's that guy. He's our deep middle safety because of his signing right now and the way he played last year.
Yeah, I wish Epps would have came back to see him on the back end of it. But the fact that they both played for Patrick Graham, and Patrick Graham's probably in the room with Pete Carroll, telling them all, because Pete Carroll is getting, he's evaluating these players to come up with his own opinion. Same with John Spidek. I think Patrick Graham being retained is critical for a lot of the players we're going to be talking about, because the Raiders have a lot of their own players who are free agents, and I think that Pete Carroll and especially John Spidek will want to listen to Patrick Graham. If it comes down to one other player around the league, maybe you stay with the guy you know who you got at home.
For sure. And as we know, sitting here watching the games, defensively has been the most consistent aspect of our football team the last, 3 or 4 years. We've had some times where we were treading in the top 10 category. Injuries always affect that. But Patrick Graham has done a really good job morphing this personnel groupings into ways to be successful on the football field. So many injuries, but a lot of these young guys stepped up, made some really good contributions, and that's why they're able to be in this conversation. I really hope Epps would have been able to come back so we could really see that dynamic of Epps, Morig, and Isaiah all playing together, because they all do so many different things. They can play in the box, they can play outside, they can play deep half, deep middle, and this is going to be a really good set of safeties in the upcoming year.
Well, I can tell you this much. John Spidek's got a big decision to make with Trayvon Merrick.
Yes.
Because if they want him, they got to pounce early in free agency and retain him, because if not, by the end of the day, he's going to land somewhere else.
Right. He's young. He can play at all 3 levels. He's proven that. Every year he's gotten better, and it's one thing to be a rookie coming out of college and having all these accolades. It's another thing to get in, go around the league once or twice, and then be able to be a competitive, impactful player, and that's what he is.
When we come back, Jason Horowitz will join us, the voice of the Raiders, as we continue with the 2025 Free Agent Preview Show.
It's game day, the day we've been waiting for. And this is more than just a game. It's a passion, a lifestyle. It's time to suit up, Raider Nation. This is Raiders football, where we all bleed silver and black. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. Here at the Raider Image, you're part of our team. Every hat, every piece of gear. Let your loyalty show out. Whether you're in the stands or cheering from home, we've got your back. Feel the confidence, own the game.
We
are the Raider Image. Your game, your gear. Exclusively at the Raider Image.
The Raiders 2025 Free Agency Preview is brought to you by Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, non-stop flights, only at Allegiant.com. We get to the quarterback position. This is interesting. The quarterback position has been talked about more than any other topic in free agency. Where do you stand now that Stafford decided to stay with the Rams?
Well, to me, what that says is that the Raiders don't love the free agent grouping because they clearly felt the need to try and go all in on an older guy in Matthew Stafford, which understandably so, right? He might be a Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's still playing well at his age. But that says a couple of things to me. It says, number one, they like the idea of trading for someone more than they like the idea of the guys who are actually available. And two, I wonder what that says to them about their thoughts about how far they might have to move up to try and get one of the younger quarterbacks in the draft. So, look, the names aren't new. We've been hearing this for a couple of months. Sam Darnold had a season for a guy as a free agent that couldn't have gone better. 35 touchdowns. He helped the Vikings go 14-3. I don't know how much you take out of those last two games that he played pretty poorly against Detroit and the Rams, but they were the most important games of the year. But they wouldn't have been in that game if he didn't play well for the better part of 15 games going into that. So, look, there's a lot to like about Sam Darnold. And then everybody after that, I don't know how you feel about the two guys that were competing in Pittsburgh, and neither one was good enough to win it right from the get-go. And Aaron Rodgers had a worse record with the Jets than Zach Wilson did the year before. So I don't know how you feel about that group.
Yeah, it's going to play out here because clearly we're going to know everything about Pete Carroll and his vision to turn this around super quick with a veteran quarterback or taking the best quarterback if he's available at 6. EA, we want to get into the safeties here. This could be the most complicated spot. Trayvon Merrick played good. A lot of other teams want him. He's unrestricted. And then Marcus Epps, good player that went down to injury. Those are two potential openings there on the back end of this defense.
Yeah, without a doubt. Trayvon, I think, has made steps every single year to really get to his point where we're looking for him to be that all-Madden type player, that Pro Bowl type player. Does an incredible job. They signed Isaiah, and he plays that deep middle. So Trayvon is more of a box player now. Does a great job of kind of figuring out kind of what's going on and making those great anticipation plays. But the free agency market at the safety position is one of those where you need to have a guy who has some trust, some familiarity with what you're trying to accomplish. And if you're not going to blitz all the time, those guys have to do a great job of really making up for mistakes that are made by linebackers or cornerbacks. So you got to have some dependable guys on the back end at safety to be able to roam around back there for the Raiders next year, right, Jay?
Yeah, there's some depth on the free agent market at safety. And obviously part of that is someone Patrick Graham and the Raiders know. You're right about Trayvon Merrick. I mean, there was a lot of criticism of him going into his third year, not this past year, but the year before. And I think people forgot just how talented he was coming out of TCU. But his year 3, his year 4, I mean, he made some massive strides the last year. And so many times we were calling his name. So he deserves all the credit that he's been getting, and he's going to get paid a hefty sum, because he's also one of the younger guys. You look at this free agent market, there's a lot of older guys on it. Harrison Smith, Justin Simmons, Jeremy Chin, Justin Reed's an older guy, been around the list. So, he's one of the younger guys who's been producing. And then at the top of the list, a couple of guys who came in with Trayvon in the draft class, Javon Holland and Cameron Bynum. Holland was great right from the get-go with the Dolphins, and Cameron Bynum took a couple of years like Trayvon to get going, but he was outstanding this past year with the Vikings. So I think both those guys would be good additions if Trayvon's not back.
Outstanding work as always. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks, guys.
Cynthia Frelund's going to join us coming up next from NFL Network. She's tremendous with numbers and looking at numbers against the cap. She'll be a tremendous addition to what we're doing here. We're breaking down NFL free agency before the NFL draft. Really important here. The Raiders are in a window now where they're trying to improve this football team. There's a new regime here. They have their own opinions, and we're going to learn along the way what they think about football philosophies. But we know anybody who comes in here is going to be competing, because that's what Pete Carroll wants.
Right.
As we continue, it's the Raiders 2025 Free Agent Preview Show.
Today we are here at Raider Us Studio, and we have a Valentine's Day event, and we are offering different crafts over in the other room, and kids can do cute arts and crafts and come into this room and also dance. And then there's some sweet treats, some snacks for them to enjoy, and we're just going to be learning a routine. It's just all about including family and having everyone be here and spreading the love.
We're at the Raiderettes when it's Valentine's I'm super excited.
Together with the community is our whole purpose of being here. So having the opportunity to do community outreach and just meet the families that have been so supportive of us here is an honor.
We welcome in Cynthia Frelund, who joins us from NFL Network for the Raiders 2025 free agent preview. Cynthia, so good to see you again. Exciting times here in the building with the new regime, potential for a quarterback, and the Raiders coming off the combine. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. You know, it's always so funny at the combine to see everyone, and every year, without fail, the Raiders staff always the best dressed. You know, that's just such a good logo. It's obviously behind us, and you know, now you got another Hall of Famer there, so lots to be happy about.
Yeah, Cynthia, this is exciting times, you know, for Raider Nation, and Pete Carroll just kind of have been here in this situation before. What are your initial thoughts of the hiring?
Well, I think that if you're talking about a culture creator, a guy who has a vision and can enact it, and then hiring the people around him to be able to execute that vision, knowing where he wants to be a little more, you know, Chip Kelly runs a little bit different type of offense than many other people, right? So knowing where he wants to be innovative, but knowing where he needs to be old school, I like that blend. It's a good blend of honor, tradition, culture, but also some like new thinking and an infusion of let's see how we can get a little bit more modern, because obviously Chip having so much experience at Ohio State and UCLA, that is really cool.
Cynthia, it's been really complicated for the Raiders at quarterback. They're picking high, but not there in the top five. Last year, Gardner Minshew versus Aiden O'Connell. They went with Gardner. Before that, Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, they really want to get it right here. And Tom Brady's in the room, as you know now, at least as a minority owner here. So when you look at free agency, knowing that Aiden O'Connell is signed and Aiden's a good player in this league and has won some big games, how important here is the next couple of weeks here to figure out this position potentially before the draft?
Well, the thing is there's so many teams who are also trying to figure out the position. So it's really going to come down to having a vision for the type of offense that they want to run, the players, not just at the quarterback position, but the support staff, meaning everyone from the offensive line to the skill players. They all need to fit a system that you want to play. So it's not just about, you know, plug and play, right? Like, it'd be nice if Tom could like throw a few passes there, but this isn't the situation that most of us find ourselves in, or most teams find themselves in. So it's really about the sum of all of the parts being more than, you know, the whole thing being more than each one individually.
I tell you, $93 million sounds like a ton of money, but when you're trying to fill, you know, a quarterback spot, a number one receiver, some defensive guys, how do you make all this money fit to a situation where you hopefully have an opportunity to maybe take advantage of our division, maybe with the Chiefs losing the way they lost? Maybe the Raiders now put themselves in a situation where if we get a quarterback, we get a number one receiver, we could be in a spot to take advantage of all those things.
Well, let's also not forget some of the pieces that aren't going anywhere. I mean, finding Max Crosby, A+. So there are some great fundamental building blocks that are already there, and figuring out the right blend of who to complement them with, and then having a longer term vision. Even if it's a quarterback that might seem like a bridge, or however we want to term a guy who's not meant to be the franchise guy, like, that's okay. You can get closer to your goal incrementally. Doesn't sound very sexy, but you can get incrementally better and win more games and really start to establish, like, you see the Chiefs right now, they have some issues, right? Their O-line, the left side of the O-line, like, that's tough, and they're now having to tag their right guard. So, you know, finding these spaces where you don't have to pay every one of the top players right away and building around the guys. Like, I mean, I couldn't be more of a bigger Max Crosby fan. He came on game day morning, and I loved what he he looked like on the field, and then you back that up with who this individual is as a person, A+. So build around those building blocks, and it's going to be fun times for Raider Nation.
Cynthia, you made a really good point I want to follow up with. The system. We don't know what the system's going to be yet, but Chip Kelly gives you a pretty good idea for what he's getting paid, the success he's had as a head coach, but most importantly, recently at Ohio State. So I want to start with Sam Darnold, and then we'll go into Justin Fields, because Darnold seems to be the next big name after Stafford decided to stay in L.A. He didn't play under Pete Carroll, but he has the USC connections, and he was under Kyle Shanahan in a backup role, and that really got him to a point where Kevin O'Connell took his ability, and then he exploded and put up MVP numbers. How high are you on Sam Darnold potentially as a fit in Las Vegas?
I don't think the Vikings are going to let him out of the building. Let me just put it that way. I don't also think Sam Darnold is a Band-Aid that can fix every program. What I like about Sam Darnold is the fact that listen, it very much helps when you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. Like, you got a lot of names there that can really help him out. I love the tight end. Listen, Raiders tight end, we know we're all in. We love the rookies. We love breaking Mike Ditka's record. I love everything about him, but let's be honest, there are some other areas that could need some help here as well. So to me, I actually prefer the fit with the Justin Fields than I do with a Sam Darnold just in general, especially for what the market will command for him, right? I just think Sam Darnold played his way into a bigger paycheck. I wouldn't be surprised come tomorrow if we see a franchise tag added to Sam Darnold's name. I just by the Vikings, and I would look at, I really like Justin Fields. I think he has gotten it's been tough for him to succeed, but I think that in the right situation and with Chip Kelly, that could be great.
I think so too. I'm a big fan of Justin Fields. Has tremendous athleticism and just seems like he hasn't had the right fit. What do you think in this offense of Chip Kelly's could be the right fit for someone like Justin?
So the thing that Chip does really well is provide a series of options for the quarterback on every snap that are, I'm going to use the word easy, not to say easy to do, but like, okay, Brock's this, blah, 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 like, let's work with that. Like, you've got some good pieces there. You need a number one wide receiver, and that's going to be hard in this market to be able to pay. Now T. Higgins, a franchise tag, all these things. But, I think that giving a series of different shorter options, quicker passes. So to me, the sexiest thing you can do is get a guy that is a good quick passer to the intermediate level. Remember, quick passes aren't always short passes. Quick passes can go 10 yards, air yards. That's fine. That's actually primo. We'd be great at that, right? So let's see if we can find a guy that can do that, because that's the area of the field where I have the most certainty that the Raiders will be able to find so many different options for the quarterback to be able, so quick, but intermediate, not necessarily just short.
Russell Wilson's only 36. We're dealing with Aaron Rodgers in his 40s, Brady at a Super Bowl 43. And Russ, he's been to 2 Super Bowls. He played really good at the end with Denver. They wanted no part of him at the end. And then when we saw what he did with Pittsburgh when he got a chance to play, led them to 10-3 at one point. And the connection is too easy to Pete Carroll and being a pro and showing up early and staying late, kind of like a Max Crosby does for the Raiders now. But a lot of people are just saying, well, Pete might not want him. Maybe him and Pete have sailed off into different directions. Should we be paying attention to Russell Wilson as a fit, or do you think he stays in Pittsburgh?
So I have one question. I'm going to put this one back on you guys. Okay. Do you think it would have looked the same had we seen Russell Wilson for the entire season? Or did they get a really interesting little nugget help shift because they went from a Justin Fields quarterback that was largely known for running the ball to a guy like Russell Wilson, who has a great big arm, but they were bringing, if you look at where the defense was, and I'm not going to pretend I know more about defense than anyone that's on here with me right now, but if you look at how close they were to the line of scrimmage, it just seems like the deep ball was a little bit more open right away, and then teams started to adjust, and then we didn't see that moon ball or whatever we're calling it. So my question is did they get a nice little uptick because they did that thing where they had the quarterback shift style? And remember, teams watch about 4 weeks of film prior, and then you're getting a little bit of help. I have a hard time being Yeah, but I think they did.
Yes, yeah, that's a great point. And when you have a switch in quarterbacks, you are right. We go about 4 weeks out, so it takes you about 2 to 3 weeks to kind of adjust your defensive philosophy to deal with a guy who's trying to throw the ball over top of your defense, opposed to someone who's running the ball, who has that read option type of look. Now your second level is intent on making sure that quarterback is contained, and if he runs, you want to make sure he's feeling the heat. But Russell, I'm big with culture, and particularly with this football team and how Pete's coming and that dynamics. And I hope whoever the quarterback is, because obviously when you play quarterback, you're already in a leadership position. How you respond to the coaching and making sure the culture is all the same. Don't you think that's would give Russ a little bit of a bump?
Yes. I mean, I guess the thing is are the culture of players that are at the Raiders right now a good fit with Russ? And what are you trying to, like, to me, it's both, right? Because, I just got back from the combine, right? We all did. So the running backs have really great personalities and they're really fast. Which one do you want to put on your team? It seems like there's a lot that you could choose from this season that would be really great. But is Russell a good fit there now? I can't. It's hard for me to tell. You'll have, bring him into the building, have him hang out with, I don't know if, I think Max gets along with everyone. I don't think find a feistier player and have him work out with that. Because Max would be like, yes, I want to work with anyone. Find a guy who's a little bit more pickier and maybe ask that person. But, I think you have to take it and you have to say, does it fit the culture we're making right now? It's not to say that Russ isn't great, because Russ is clearly great, but is Russ today the guy that's going to be the culture you want to create tomorrow? I don't know. You and I, or you guys can, but I think coaches and, Pete's going to have to figure that out. Chip's going to have to figure that out. And so are the people on the team that really matter, because that, to me, the Raider way is a lot about family. And it's a lot about, who are these guys? To me, Max Crosby is the embodiment of a Raider, and Brock Bowers is too, but, he's just he's a rookie. So we haven't seen it for forever yet. So, I think that you got to ask those mainstays who are already there, because even though Russ is great and has a great reputation and has a Super Bowl ring, doesn't mean it's the right fit for right now. And that's not shade. It's just life.
I got to ask you, Cynthia, about the safety position, because Trayvon Merrick is deserving. He's deserving of a new contract, not only in Las Vegas, but by other teams. And he's developed into a player that you'd like to be able to sign more players to their second contract around here. And there's been so many new regimes, and now we have one that looks really stable. But are they going to want their guys, or are they going to want to listen to Patrick Graham, who says you got to keep this guy along the way? Epps is up, Merrick is up. And they decided to re-sign Isaiah Palomal, which is a nice player for less money than Merrick would get. You know the numbers that the Raiders have financially here. Are they going to be able to keep one, two, or could they lose both of them?
Who's their quarterback? Depends on how much you pay the quarterback. The reality is that it's all a version of how much do you pay whom and who are you going to target in the draft. Now, the thing I would say is that I love Spillane, and I think adding him in that, there needs to be this nice mix of veterans with younger guys with homegrown. I know Spillane isn't homegrown, but I believe he fit well, at least from last year. It appeared that way. So when you could get a few discounts in certain places, it allows you a little bit more flexibility elsewhere. But I truly think that better or worse, however you want to say it, you have to go quarterback centric just because of the price tag that position commands. And it just kind of is what it is. And unfortunately for safeties, because if I could be anything, I would be a really mean defensive back. Just so you know, that would be my personality. I'm really not tough, but I'd like to be that way. But I would really like to do that, but unfortunately, safeties don't command that high paycheck. Even corners don't get paid as much as wide receivers, and market dynamics have to influence your strategy, because when you need a few different ones of those top 5 most expensive picks, sometimes safety becomes an area where people don't pay top of the market.
Yeah, that's going to be a really sticking point with Raider Nation because they felt like they've really stuck with Trayvon, and he has really grown and blossomed into a really good football player, can play at all three levels. And you brought Epps in here last year from Philadelphia, and it just seemed like Epps just turned over a new leaf for Trayvon as far as that preparation in the film room, and he's really blossomed to a really good player. And you're right, though. It all depends on that quarterback. But we need to find an area of this football field that we can depend on. And we've been able to depend on that safety position when Trayvon's there. So it's going to be exciting and interesting to see what happens with that safety position.
Yeah, on top of it, Cynthia, one of the many reasons we wanted to get you on here with your analysis is the numbers. Knowing that they're second in cap space, knowing that there's new ownership, as you're aware of. There's an infusion of cash for football, maybe compared to Oakland 10 years ago when the Raiders wanted to dive into free agency. With the numbers that you analyze, do you think the Raiders are in a really good spot to pounce with the money early in free agency? Because this isn't a deep free agent class. It's just not. You're not looking at wide receivers, T. Higgins getting tagged. It's starting to look like the quarterbacks with Stafford staying, that if the Raiders are going to pull the trigger behind John Spidtak, they're going to have to do it really quick in that window to negotiate.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The strategy, I believe, will be more cohesive. And I think that they're sitting there they already know. Like, I'm sure they have, refinements. The thing to also add context when it feels very spendy, I believe, this time in 10 days or whatever, when we start to see those free agent numbers come, it might look big, Raiders fans, but that's okay because there's space, number one. But number two, this is not the deepest draft class at those 5 key positions. Remember, just quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher, corner, wide receiver. You can finagle 4 and 5, whatever. But ultimately, this is not a deep class for some of those things. So they're going to have to be like, when we're and they could potentially maybe trade down 2 picks and still get whatever. But if you want Will Campbell, the tackle, even though he has short arms, you're not going to be able to. You might even have to trade up. Point being, so you have to figure out like which of these expensive dudes are we going to get in free agency, because we have to be able to. The 53 is what we need to consider. And that is where Pete Carroll's expertise and ability to make an average player a little bit above average via coaching and via trusting Chip Kelly on the offense, via trusting Patrick Graham on the defense. That is what Chip Kelly does the best. And that's where the cohesiveness is where you're going to be able to see it.
Thank you, Cynthia. You're fantastic. Really
Awesome.
appreciate you doing this with us. Thank you so much.
Anytime. You guys are the best. And I got my Raiders gear right here.
There we go.
You know I got it.
If I know this place, you're getting new gear after this.
That's
one,
right.
So get ready for a box.
I love Raiders gear. Mwah. Like it's the easiest to wear. I told Chip Kelly's wife, they're my neighbors. I was like, you know what? This is the best place for you because number 1, best gear. Number 2, easiest to be fashionable. Number 3, best stadium in all of football, and it's not even close.
There you go.
All the best. We'll see you soon and do this again. Thanks so much.
Take care.
There is Cynthia Frelund. Nice job by her.
Awesome.
Taking a look at the numbers here, because as we look at this, here it is. Everybody who's watching this, if you look at what we're doing here, the dates are important. Quarterbacks, safeties. If we look at the schedule, Tuesday, March 4th with this show, then Wednesday, March 5th, O-line, D-line.
Got to get those corners up there.
Well, we got the corner here. We want to tease with you now in this Canton stuff. Thursday will be the corners and the wide receivers, and then running backs and linebackers on Monday, March 10th, and then it's open for business in regards to negotiating here, and we'll have that all here on the Raiders official YouTube page and everything we're doing here at Raiders.com. In my years of doing this and sitting in this seat, I can tell you one thing. Years where they've had a lot of money to spend, all the GMs tell me the same thing. Well, we don't want to spend it all. We want to go through the draft. And I get it. And the Raiders have a high draft pick here. So I'm just interested to see if they spend a lot more money than we expect early in free agency, or do they wait because they know that they got to sign some of their reigning players, current players on this team? It's going to be fascinating to watch.
It really is. This is really the part where the personnel people are playing. It's a game right now, and they have to be on point. They have to win this season of free agency. And the draft, like we talked about, the draft is not something that you can say, hey, we're going to build our football team this year off the draft. When you're drafting, you're thinking about those players are going to help you develop years later. And because of that Super Bowl, things have ramped up. There's some weaknesses in our division now. And this could be a perfect chance for the Raiders to be able to jump in when no one thought this division was going to be open. Right now, it looks pretty open right now. And it's very important that we get to a point where we are very competitive going into 2025.
Thanks for watching this episode of our free agency preview. We got Lincoln Kennedy coming up with the O-line, and he is brutally honest. As always, he's the best. He'll be a part of our next show coming up, O-line and D-line, as we continue our off-season coverage. And there isn't much of an off-season because it's about free agency. Thanks for watching, everybody, here on YouTube.